Every single device you use, from the phone in your hands, the lamp on your desk, it all runs on this force that we can't even see. But have you ever stopped to think, how does that invisible energy, well, do anything? Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and look at the fundamental rules of the road for electricity, the circuits and laws that literally make our modern world work.
And just so you know, this is part 3 of a big 20-part series on an introduction to electricity from Virtualization Options LLC. So now that we've kind of covered the basics of charge, we're ready to see how we actually put it to work.
All right, so let's start with a really simple question. How does electricity actually get from a battery to, say, a light bulb? I mean, it sounds simple, right? But the answer to that is at the very heart of how all electronics function. So what is the secret?
Well, the answer is actually pretty straightforward. Electricity needs a path. You can think of it like a highway, just for electrons. And in the world of electronics, we call that special highway an electric circuit.
And, the word circuit itself gives us a massive clue. It comes from the same root as the word circle. And that is the perfect way to think about it. For electricity to flow, it absolutely needs a complete, unbroken loop. It's got to travel from the power source, go through the device it's powering, and then make its way all the way back. If you break that loop anywhere, bam, the flow stops instantly. And pretty much every circuit you'll ever see has the same core parts. First up, you need a power source, like a battery, to give it that push. Next, you need conductors. Those are usually wires to make the path. Then you need a load. That's the thing that's actually doing the work, like a light bulb, turning electricity into light. And of course, a lot of the time you'll have a switch, which is basically just there to open and close that loop whenever you want. Okay, so we've got our path, our circuit, but to really get what's happening inside that loop, we need to talk about 3 invisible forces. Now, the easiest way to picture these, by far, is to just imagine water flowing through a pipe. You've got the pressure pushing the water, you've got the amount of water actually flowing, and you've got anything that might be getting in the way and slowing it down. All right, so let's start with the first piece of that puzzle. If electricity is flowing, something has to be pushing it, right? So what is that force? That push, that's what we call voltage. It's the electrical version of water pressure. The higher the voltage, the more oomph there is to push those electric charges through the circuit. Think about it. Without voltage, all those charges just sit there with absolutely no motivation to move. And you see this concept of push everywhere in your daily life. A little AA battery, that's got a tiny 1.5-volt push. A 9-volt battery, the square ones, gives you a bit more of a kick. But your standard wall outlet, whoa, that's a powerful 120-volt push, and that's exactly what makes it so dangerous. Okay, so voltage is the push. Simple enough. But what do we call the actual movement? The flow of all those charges that happens because of that push. Well, that flow is called current, and we measure it in amps, or just amps for short. So let's go back to our water pipe. If voltage is the pressure, then current is the flow rate. It's literally how much water is moving past a certain point every single second. It's all about the quantity in motion. And listen, this is a really, really crucial safety point. We always hear about high voltage being dangerous, right? But it's actually the current that's the biggest threat in an electric shock. There's this old saying among electricians, volts jolt, but milliamps kill. And what that means is that even a tiny, tiny amount of current flowing where it's not supposed to can be fatal. Okay, so we've got the push, that's voltage. We've got the flow, that's current. But in the real world, no path is ever perfectly clear, right? There's always something getting in the way, some kind of opposition. So what is it that resists the flow of that current? That obstacle is called resistance, and we measure it in something called ohms. The best way to think about it is as electrical friction. So in our water pipe example, resistance would be like a section of the pipe getting really narrow or having super rough walls that make it way harder for the water to get through. Every single part of a circuit, even the wire itself, has at least a little bit of resistance. And get this, the actual physical shape of the wire matters a lot. A really long, thin wire creates more resistance. It's a tough journey for the electrons. But a shorter, thicker wire, that offers way less resistance. It's like the difference between a tiny 1-lane country road and a massive 6-lane highway. One lets the traffic flow a whole lot smoother. So, okay, we've got our 3 big ideas: the push, the flow, and the obstacle. Voltage, current, and resistance. But here comes the aha moment. These 3 things aren't just separate ideas. Nope. They are completely connected, locked together by one simple, elegant, and incredibly powerful rule. That's right.
These three forces are always in this constant, predictable dance with each other. And once you understand that relationship, once you see how they're connected, you pretty much hold the master key to understanding how every single electronic circuit works.
And this is it. This is Ohm's law. Now, it might just look like a simple formula in a triangle, but this is one of the most powerful tools in all of electronics. It tells us, plain and simple, that voltage is equal to the current multiplied by the resistance. What that means is, if you know any two of these, you can always figure out the third. They're always locked in this perfect balance.
And what this means in the real world is actually pretty straightforward. It's common sense, really. If you crank up the voltage, the push, but you don't change the resistance, well, you're going to get more current, more push, more flow. Makes sense. On the flip side, if you increase the resistance, the obstacle, you're going to get less current for the same amount of push. All right, so now that we have the main rule that governs everything, we can start looking at how circuits are actually put together. And it turns out there are really only two basic ways to connect things, and your choice makes a huge difference in how the whole thing behaves.
So, on one hand, you've got what's called a series circuit. That's where everything is connected one after another in a single loop. And on the other hand, you've got a parallel circuit, which gives the current multiple separate branches to flow through. And believe me, the difference between these two is massive.
And here's exactly why that matters. In a series circuit, there is only one path. Think about those old, cheap Christmas lights. If one single bulb burns out, the whole string goes dark, right? That's because the entire loop is now broken. But your house is wired in parallel. Every light, every outlet is on its own separate branch. And that's why when your toaster trips a breaker, your TV doesn't shut off. Its path back to the source is still good to go.
So we've covered a ton of ground here, right? We went from the simple idea of a loop to the invisible forces at play, all the way to the laws that tie them all together. But why does any of this really matter? Why is this so important?
It's because everything, and I mean everything, from a simple little flashlight to a massive supercomputer, operates on these exact principles. The rules of the circuit, this relationship between voltage, current, and resistance, this is the universal code that runs our entire technological world. When you learn this stuff, you're learning to understand the invisible language that powers modern life.